Marvel's heroes are usually the ones taking the spotlight, their courage, valor, and wisdom being at the forefront. However, it's their foes that highlight these traits, and some of those foes are downright terrifying. Today we're taking a look at the darker side of Marvel characters and focusing on some of these Marvel villains, as Stan Lee presents the top 10 scariest Marvel characters created by Stan Lee. Number 10, we have the Mole Man, or Harvey Elder, a character who's made his unsettling debut in Fantastic Four #1, co-created by Jack Kirby. Setting the tone for this list, Mole Man is a villain whose appearance alone is mildly grotesque, a bit inhuman. With his hunched back, pale skin, and nearly blind eyes hidden behind thick glasses, his isolation and bitterness towards the surface world making him chilling in a unique way. But it isn't just his eerie appearance that instills fear. What truly makes the Mole Man terrifying is his power to command hordes of subterranean monsters, lurking just below our feet. Mole Man controls gigantic creatures like the monstrous Giganto and his Moloids, armies of burrowing humanoids who can emerge from the ground at his command. The thought of these creatures lying in wait beneath cities capable of surfacing anywhere and wreaking havoc is enough to send shivers down your spine. Just imagine you're just walking, and all of a sudden a Moloid comes out from the ground and grabs you. That's terrifying. Fueled by resentment for a world that shunned him, the Mole Man possesses an ever-present looming threat as he dreams of invading the surface. His power, combined with his festering bitterness, makes him an adversary who can unleash chaos on an unsuspecting world, giving him a truly frightening presence among Marvel's villains. Next up, at number 9, we have Man-Thing, who first appeared in Savage Tales #10, co-created by Roy Thomas, Jerry Conway, and Gray Morrow. This hulking swamp dweller brings a unique horror to the Marvel Universe, lurking in the dark, oppressive atmosphere of the swamp, a creature you might stumble upon without even realizing it. Man-Thing's terror isn't from an active pursuit or attack, rather, it comes from his haunting presence, a silent, instinct-driven creature that doesn't hunt or kill with intent, but reacts purely on impulse. So, cross his path at your own peril. Visually, Man-Thing is grotesque, with dangling tendrils on his face that give him an almost Lovecraftian appearance, like a shambling monster that crawled out from some ancient forgotten horror tale. Like, look at him, he kinda looks like Cthulhu. His bulging red eyes and moss-covered form make him a true swamp nightmare. But it's not just his looks that inspire terror. Man-Thing is drawn to fear itself, an involuntary reaction that draws him toward those experiencing terror. Worse yet, if he senses fear or makes physical contact, his touch is a fatal one. His corrosive skin burns and dissolves flesh. The horror escalates only because fear is what brings him closer. Like, imagine the nightmare of stumbling upon this creature, feeling fear, and watching as it approaches, not out of malice, but because your very fear has sealed your fate. And the thing is, you wouldn't even know why he was chasing you. You're just scared because he's chasing you. That is terrifying. Man-Thing's chilling indifference and his lethal reaction to fear make him one of Marvel's most nightmarish figures. At number 8, we have Mephisto, Marvel's version of the literal devil, who made his debut in The Silver Surfer #3, co-created by John Buscema in 1968. Mephisto embodies a special kind of horror, one rooted in deception, suffering, and an insidious mastery of manipulation. With the devilish cunning of a true demonic entity, Mephisto takes pleasure in twisting people's desires into nightmarish deals, tricking even the sharpest minds into binding contracts that lead to their endless misery. The most unsettling aspect of his deception is that he rarely seeks a quick kill or a simple victory. Instead, he revels in creating webs of endless suffering that gradually erode his victims' souls. Those ensnared by Mephisto rarely realize they've been outwitted until it's too late, forced to endure a cycle of despair that feeds his dark powers. But Mephisto's terror doesn't end at manipulation. His mastery of dark magic and his control over hell itself grant him godlike powers that amplify the horror he brings. Unlike most villains in the Marvel Universe, Mephisto doesn't just seek conquest or revenge, he craves souls, relishing in the corruption and agony of others as it strengthens his dominion. He's tortured iconic heroes like Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, which, if you've seen the films, right there, and Doctor Doom by exploiting their deepest vulnerabilities, often forcing them into impossible choices that bring ruin to those they love. And in a multiverse packed with superpowers, Mephisto's real horror is his ability to turn inner fears, regrets, and desires into weapons of endless torment. His very existence reminds heroes that there are fates far worse than death, making Mephisto a uniquely terrifying force among Marvel's pantheon of villains. At number 7, we delve into cosmic horror with Dormammu. who made his debut in Strange Tales number 126, co-created by Steve Ditko. Dormammu rules the Dark Dimension, a place of twisted, ever-shifting reality where he's worshipped as a god, feared as a tyrant, and unopposed in his domination. His followers, powerful mystics and twisted creatures who serve him out of fear or worship, extend his reach beyond the Dark Dimension, carrying out his sinister agenda across the multiverse. These loyal minions make Dormammu's influence pervasive and insidious, bringing his dark ambitions into other realms and frequently putting him at odds with Doctor Strange, Earth's Sorcerer Supreme. Dormammu's desire to consume entire realities and impose his will on every dimension makes him a truly existential threat. Dormammu's appearance alone is enough to instill fear, a towering fiery figure with a blazing skull-like face and piercing eyes that seem to gaze into the soul. Draped in dark, regal armor that conveys both power and nobility, Dormammu is an almost godlike presence, reminding all who see him that he's not merely a villain but a force of cosmic power. But his true horror lies in his near-limitless abilities and ruthlessness. Dormammu can manipulate reality within the Dark Dimension, bend time and space, and summon devastating magic far beyond the comprehension of most mortals. Unlike other villains, Dormammu doesn't simply seek wealth or domination of Earth, he craves the complete assimilation of entire dimensions into his own, often leaving only chaos and ruin in his wake. His encounter with Doctor Strange are battles not just for victory, but for existence itself, making Dormammu a terrifying symbol of cosmic power that would consume entire worlds in his relentless quest for dominion. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Now, while we're still on a cosmic scale, let's talk about our number 6 pick, Galactus, who made his first appearance in Fantastic Four number 48, co-created by Jack Kirby in 1966. Galactus is unlike any traditional villain. He isn't motivated by malice or conquest, but by survival. As a cosmic entity who feeds on the very life force of planets, Galactus's need to consume worlds is an unavoidable reality of his existence. But his hunger has devastating consequences, often spelling doom for entire civilizations. The sight of his arrival, a colossal figure towering above even the largest planets, sends shivers down the spine of all who witness it. And it doesn't help that his heralds, such as the Silver Surfer, travel the universe to find new worlds for him. And honestly, if you see the Silver Surfer, you know that your planet is marked for impending annihilation. What makes Galactus truly terrifying is his utter detachment and impartiality. He doesn't choose his targets out of cruelty or vengeance, he simply needs to consume, regardless of the life he destroys in the process. He just kinda does it. Entire worlds, regardless of their innocence or value, are just food. Galactus is really just a force of cosmic inevitability, kinda like a natural disaster but on a universal scale. His presence is not just a physical threat, but a philosophical horror. A reminder that some forces in the universe are beyond good and evil, operating on a scale incomprehensible to those they affect. His colossal size, inhuman appearance, and vast power make him the embodiment of unstoppable doom, an existential horror that looms over every civilization with no hope of negotiation or mercy. Galactus is a cosmic force that strips away any sense of safety, reminding beings across the universe that survival is never guaranteed. For our next character at number 5, we're bringing things back to street level with the Lizard, who made his debut in The Amazing Spider-Man number 6, co-created by Steve Ditko in 1963. The Lizard isn't a cosmic entity or supernatural terror, he's Dr. Curt Connors, a brilliant scientist who, in a tragic attempt to regrow his lost arm, transformed himself into a monstrous reptilian creature. The Lizard represents a classic experiment gone wrong, much like Man-Thing, but with a twist that brings a deeply personal and relatable horror to the story. Dr. Connors' transformation isn't just physical, it strips him of his humanity, unleashing a savage, primal version of himself that operates purely on animalistic instinct. Guess he can probably still talk, but you know what I mean. He's a little more beast-like. See, the horror of the Lizard is more than just his grotesque, scaly appearance and sharp claws. It's rooted in the story of the man who just wanted to heal himself but ended up becoming a monster in the process. His loss of humanity means that every encounter with Spider-Man is fraught with moral conflict. Spider-Man isn't just battling a villain, but a man he respects and cares for that's now driven by primal rage and instincts he can't really control. The transformation of Dr. Connors into the Lizard introduces an element of body horror as well, watching a once kind man morph into a grotesque reptilian creature who crawls, slithers, and prowls like a predator. He looks grotesque, and unfortunately what makes this horrifying is its relatability, because the Lizard's story is relatable. He just wanted to fix himself, and in the end, transformed into this horrific creature. And you know, if in real life you were given the chance to fix something that you thought was broken, I'm pretty sure you would take it. Unfortunately, the price to pay would be that you would turn into a monster, but you wouldn't know that. Speaking of monsters, at number 4, we have the Green Goblin, one of Spider-Man's most iconic foes, who first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man number 14, co-created by Steve Ditko in 1964. Like the Lizard, Green Goblin is another tragic example of human ambition gone wrong. Both Norman Osborn and Dr. Connors were driven by desire for greatness and the power to control their own destinies, one through restoring a lost limb, and the other through amplifying his influence and strength. But while Dr. Connors was turned into a lizard, thereby stripping his humanity away, Norman Osborn's experiment twisted his mind. See, what happened was, driven by his own ambition, Osborn took an unstable super serum that enhanced his physical power, but it came with a price, turning him into the chaotic, deformed Green Goblin and shattering his sanity in the process. What makes Green Goblin terrifying is the combination of his newfound twisted intellect and his unpredictability. And you know, he uses those not just to defeat Spider-Man, but destroy him on every single level, even targeting people important to Peter Parker, not just Spider-Man. See, unlike the Lizard, who's often a tragic victim of his own body, the Green Goblin is a manifestation of a broken mind, using his scientific genius for terror rather than healing. Green Goblin is a villain who brings terror on both a personal and public scale, making him truly unpredictable and dangerous. This is similar to the tragedy of Dr. Connors, but with a darker twist, showing that ambition can create not just monsters, but pure evil. At number 3, we have Dr. Doom, who is an iconic blend of intellect, sorcery, and chilling ambition, using the word ambition again. Introduced in Fantastic Four number 5 in 1962 and co-created with Jack Kirby, Dr. Doom is a unique figure of terror in the Marvel Universe. He is often seen dressed in his signature green cloak and armor, with his face hidden behind an emotionless metal mask. Doom is both a genius scientist and a master of dark sorcery, a combination that makes him terrifyingly powerful. His mask, which conceals a face scarred by his own failed experiment, is a symbol of his unyielding pride and bitterness, a reminder of his tragic origin and obsession with perfection. Doom's intellect rivals that of the smartest heroes, but what truly makes him terrifying is his unwavering belief in his superiority over all others. To him, every setback or defeat is temporary, and every rival is an obstacle to be crushed. Doom's horror stems not only from his power, but his unrelenting drive for control and domination. Unlike the Green Goblin or the Lizard, whose ambition and scientific pursuits transform them into monsters, Doom remains human, driven by a belief that his rule is the ultimate solution for humanity's flaws. Like, he legitimately believes this with all his heart. This conviction makes him ruthless. He's willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for his vision of order and power. And you know what? His mastery of sorcery places him on a cosmic scale, rivaling mystical threats like Dormammu or Mephisto. And his scientific genius makes him as dangerous on Earth as he is on other dimensions. His iron will, emotionless facade, and ability to wield both science and magic place him on a level that few can rival. And Dr. Doom is terrifying because he sees himself not as a villain, but as a ruler and savior, believing his way is the only way. And honestly, the ones that believe they are truly right and there is no empathizing with anyone else are the ones that you should look out for, and they are the scariest people in the world. Moving on to number 2, we have Marvel's Scarecrow, not to be confused with the Batman villain Scarecrow. We're talking about Marvel's Scarecrow, who is also a master of fear and first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 51, co-created by Don Heck in 1964. Scarecrow was once a talented contortionist and escape artist, skills that made him uniquely suited to explore and exploit fear in his career as a villain. Trust me, the moment I heard that he was a talented contortionist, I thought of so many things that could be terrifying to watch. Like, Scarecrow's ability to slip through impossibly tight spaces, combined with his mastery of escape, makes him an unsettling figure who can appear out of nowhere, slipping into rooms, tight spaces, or even vents to stalk his prey. Like, imagine being pursued by someone who can contort through any space, appearing from the shadows when you least expect it. It's unnerving. And you know what's even scarier? The Scarecrow knows this, and he uses it in his approach to exploiting fear itself. See, he lacks brute strength, but he relies on psychological warfare, crafted crafting situations to disorient and terrorize his targets. He uses his body like a weapon, appearing in frightening twisted shapes that hint at his disturbing fascination with fear. Trust me, reminiscent of literally all the horror games nowadays. I don't know if y'all played Poppy's Playtime, but there's this one figure in there called Huggy Wuggy. He's like this really tall blue figure. You can say he's kind of a contortionist, but there's one sequence where you have to escape and you have to run away from him, and you go into the vents, and turns out, despite how big he is, he can get into the vents and he chases you through the vents. It is like the worst sequence in the game. One thing, I hate being chased, but it had me like, I don't even know how to describe it. I was terrified the entire way through. Anyway, if you watch that, that is what the Scarecrow is. And that is why he is number 2 on the list, because he can do that. That is terrifying. He can slip into places that you least expect and scare you, but in a horrifying way. At number 1, we have Carnage, who first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man number 361, co-created by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley in 1992. Carnage is a result of a blood-red symbiote bonding with Cletus Cassidy, a psychopathic serial killer with a depraved lust for chaos and violence. You can see where this is going. See, while Venom has a chaotic side, he still retains a sense of morality and some limits, while Carnage has none of those. He has nothing restraining him from doing anything. Carnage is a pure manifestation of evil driven by a bloodlust that knows no bounds, and the fusion of a symbiote and psychopath creates a horrifying, unpredictable threat who will kill indiscriminately, often for the sheer pleasure of causing pain and chaos, making him one of Spider-Man's most terrifying foes, and an easy pick for the scariest villain on this list. Like, imagine walking on the street and you see Carnage. It's over, man. You have a 1% chance of getting away, and that's only if Spider-Man saves you. There's no way, unless Carnage decides to let you get away so he can chase you. See, what makes Carnage especially frightening is his lack of moral reasoning. He doesn't kill for revenge or to accomplish a goal, he just kills because he likes it. Cassidy's psychopathy amplifies his symbiote's natural aggression, resulting in a creature with absolutely no empathy or restraint. His powers mirror his madness, allowing him to shape his own blood-red razor-sharp tendrils into deadly weapons that can tear through walls, armor, and anyone in his way. Carnage's attacks are violent, brutal, and often personal, targeting not only Spider-Man, but innocent bystanders to create as much fear and suffering as possible. Carnage embodies chaos and destruction, making him more like a force of nature than a traditional villain. And you know, what Carnage does is literally everything that the other villains on this list do, except it's just one villain. He's a force of nature, he's unpredictable, he's a monster, and he does things because he believes in him. He doesn't care about anyone else, he just wants to have fun and enjoy killing people. And that's what makes him number 1. He is an unmatched figure of terror, bent on causing a rampage of blood and destruction that knows no limit. As you can see, Stan Lee has co-created many of Marvel's most memorable and terrifying characters, many of whom embody fear through their appearance, actions, or powers. Whether it's the raw power of Galactus, the psychological horror of the Green Goblin, or the cosmic terror of Dormammu, or all of those combined, these characters stand out as some of the most frightening figures in comic book history. Let us know in the comments which characters we may have missed that keep you up at night. And if you managed to catch this video on Halloween, happy Halloween to y'all Stan fans. And if you're watching this after Halloween, can't forget to say it, Excelsior!